Campania corn with the voice of an oak. We don't care what you look like when you're growing into a tree, so long as you're clever and you get yourself a good science degree.
27,000, 28,000, 28,000 on my right then, at 29,000, near me now. One more, sir, at 29,000. For 29,000, 30,000 we have on my right at 30,000 pounds. For 30,000 pounds then, it's against you on the telephone, it's against the books, and it's against you on the left. For 30,000 pounds, selling it then.
Throughout the ages, jewelry has often been remodeled to suit the fashion of the day. And it's very unusual to find a lovely ruby and diamond bandeau like this one, which was then worn on the forehead. It rather reminds one of those wonderful parties of the great Gatsby days when those lovely girls were bebopping away at the Charleston, but they weren't shy at all about wearing this sort of jewelry. Nowadays, it would be very unusual to find such a piece in the local pub. Because of its rarity, it's been valued at around 30,000 pounds. And this diamond Revere has been valued at rather more, at 65,000 pounds. But diamonds are very hot at the moment. And tomorrow we're going to see what lots 306 and 311 are going to bring against the competition.
And the last lot of this morning's sale, lot 311, the important diamond Revere. A lot of interest in this, and I'm going to open the bidding at 60,000 pounds, at 60,000 pounds, 65,000, 70,000 I have, 75,000, 80,000, 85,000, 85,000, 90,000 in the room, 95,000 with me, 100,000, 100,000 then, at 100,000, 105,000, 105,000, 110,000. The bid is with me at 110,000. For 110,000 pounds, 115,000 pounds. In the doorway, against the books at 115,000 pounds then. For 115,000 pounds, all finished at 115,000. Selling then, the draft done, 115,000.
Thank you, and this is Kurt Gowdy in San Moritz, Switzerland. We're ready now for the third and final run of the International Toboggan Championship. And here's the way they stand at the end of 2 runs. In first place is Peter Fishbourne of Great Britain. Second is Nino Bibbia of Italy. Third is Colin Mitchell of Great Britain. Remember, the lowest total time for 3 runs will decide the championship. And now we're ready for action in the third run. Here's the leader in the first run, Nick Rayner, one of the 3 British brothers in this Cresta run. He had a run the first time of 55 and 9700 seconds. On this run, he needs 56 and 5300 seconds to pass Nino Bibbia to take the lead after the second run. Remember, the lowest time total of 3 runs will decide the Cresta Championship. And remember, this is the only Cresta course in the world, right here in San Moritz. Now he's in the rise curve, Stan Bennett.
That's right. Pretty high, too high in that curve. Now he's coming into the shuttlecock.
There he goes. He's off. There he goes, and he's scratched and out of the event. And shuttlecock is really taking its toll today. The famous shuttlecock curve here. And I think I'm going to keep repeating it time after time. You can see why they have that big pile of hay there. Nino Bibbia is still in first place of the International Cresta Championship. And Nick Rayner's all right, but he's out of the event. He's been scratched. He's on the left. Sport is curling, a popular pastime here, which was invented centuries ago by the Scots. This youngster looks like he's preparing for a
way down.
he's over. And remember, also a mecca for shopping. There's the market served outdoors on stores with Swiss watch rabbit locks. Picture us straight away now. Here's Battle. He's off. Here he goes. Ryan Jenny clubs with the latest in this technique.
ski sickness.
One of the most beautiful and exclusive of the
I would love to
resort
be on my
areas.
skis once more, to puddle flake and swoop with an expert group I'd adore. We'd go down in the deep powder snow with ski-powered pace and grace to show. At high mountain height, it's as ultralight as a white carpet of blackboard chalk. In a cloud of odor, I dance and bend to descend like swooping sparrowhawk. Down lower, the powder is more like a mar of freshly milled baking flour, where the powder gives more tractions of turning power. I inflate my figure of 8 wiggles to G-force airplane turns like biggles.
Graf diamonds. In the secretive world of the diamond dealer, there's no equal to the empire run by Lawrence Graf from these premises in Knightsbridge, London. This is a private world, and Graf is a private man. He avoids publicity, and he rarely gives interviews. At auction last month, he paid a world record £4.8 million for a single cut diamond. One more for his extraordinary Hall of Fame.
Well, Nicholas, here we have part of our museum of famous stones that we've either bought or cut or produced one way or another. And we've become so attached to those wonderful gems that we decided to copy them and keep a record of them forever and ever and ever. They're actually cut in exactly the same way as the originals.
I've never seen a collection like this. I must say, of replicas, of course, not of the real thing. I think that more stones have been through your hands than practically anybody I can think of. This is the Excelsior, isn't it?
Absolutely. The Excelsior, in fact, I'm sure you remember, was the largest piece of rough diamond found in Africa until they found the Cullinan, which is now in the Crown Jewels. And from the Excelsior, there were 21 satellites, this being the largest.
And that, of course, is the rough, which weighed over 1,000 carats.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And the blue here, this fabulous pear-shaped blue. I've never seen anything of that color before.
Well, when I look at it now, my mouth waters because the chance of finding another one is so remote.
And the idol's eye.
And the idol's eye, as you say, is the very first historical stone I ever bought. And of course, you'll recall the story many years ago, in the 17th century. It was, in fact, in the eye of an idol.
Didn't a French deserter steal it and then...
Well, Sultan Abdul Hamid owned it, and he wanted to transport it to Europe, and his most trusted messenger ran away with it.
Hope it never happens to you.
I hope not.
And the Porter Rhodes, of course.
It's one of the most beautiful stones we've ever bought at auction. It's the most wonderful shape, absolutely symmetrical, and tremendous brilliance.
Now, Laurie, I'm longing to see what's in that black box there.
Wow, this is really something special. This is 85.91 carats of pure D flawless diamond.
Magnificent.
One of the most beautiful diamonds that was ever cut.
Now, this was a record price, wasn't it? I was actually in the sales room when you bought it, and I was bidding against you, but where were you?
Well, I was actually in New York. I didn't know you were bidding against me, but I decided to make a little appearance in the room during the morning sale, and then I said goodbye to everybody. And they all thought I was leaving to go back to Europe. I actually went back to my hotel room, decided to put my feet up on the bed with a few pillows behind me, and I did all my bidding on the telephone whilst I was there. I'll just let you have a look at it loose if you like. It's just a wonderful thing to hold.
Great jewels and magnificent gemstones have fascinated us since the beginning of civilization. Their possession has been a mark of wealth and success, and they've been the symbols of power, of conquerors and kings. They've caused people to be tortured and even murdered. They've commanded our admiration and even inspired awe. The superb state imperial crown was built for the coronation of Queen Victoria in 1831. It is truly one of the most magnificent crowns in the world. Possibly not for its design. Between us, this is rather 19th century forced ornate, but because of its historic stones. At the back, you have the Stuart sapphire, which dates back to the 16th century. And to balance it at the front, you have the second most important diamond in the world, the Cullinan II, the second star of Africa. The Maltese cross at the top centers on St. Edward's sapphire, itself subject to a fascinating legend from the days of Charlemagne. And below, the Black Prince's ruby. This isn't a ruby at all, but a spinel, known in those days as a ballast ruby. Today, a spinel is only worth a fraction of a real ruby. But this spinel is worth more than any other ruby because of its history. In ancient Castile, King Pedro the Cruel, in a dastardly act of greed to obtain it, murdered his dinner guest, the Moorish prince, with his own javelin. Later, it passed to the Black Prince as a battle payment, and it was worn in Agincourt by Henry V in his helmet, who almost lost it in the hand-to-hand fighting to a French chevalier who had sworn to capture it and to present it to the King of France. And this superb scepter, which is mounted with the largest and the most valuable diamond in the world, the Cullinan I, the first star of Africa. It weighs 530 carats. It is almost pure, and its color is of the first water. In the complicated mathematics of diamond estimation, this stone alone is worth over 100 million pounds. And the other scepter, the scepter
Discipline.
with the dove. This is
Petty rules and regulations are my fate. Petty rules and regulations I absolutely hate. My discipline began when I was only one. I had lots of fun. Then at home and at schools I had to obey the petty rules. Now I'm backed by a craven A. Every rule coming to light he'll obey. I hate petty regulation. With discipline it began, when I was very young, for breaking home and school's petty rules. Then I grew up as an unruly pup. Now I'm under sway of a petty law obeying.
Ladies and gentlemen, the jewels of the Duchess of Windsor. Lot 1. And I shall open this at 7,000 francs. 7,500 I'm bid. 7,500.
This ruby necklace, a gift from before the marriage, is likely to fetch at least $1 million. A panther bracelet, hundreds of thousands. And the 31-carat McLean diamond, it should sell for more than $1 million. A cigarette box with the inscription, David as Edward was known, from Wallace, Nassau, 1941. An example of the sentiment of the collection.
Well, I think it's sad in one way. I don't think it's sad in another way because, after all, jewels should not be put in museums, and these jewels were made to wear by beautiful and elegant women, and I think this is what should happen to them.
And that was the Duchess's wish.
I think very much so, yes.
And for those intent on purchase, a final examination today of the stones. Just who will be attending tomorrow's auction, Sotheby's are keeping a closely guarded secret. It is known, however, that the royal family will be represented here. A marquee will house the auction proper, a sale which Sotheby's describe as the most important of its kind this century.
22,000.
In Geneva, 1,500 people crowded into a circus tent for the greatest jewelry show on earth. The Duchess's famous flamingo brooch became the symbol of the show. Bidding was in Swiss francs. It made nearly £500,000, 10 times the auctioneer's estimate.
À juger, 5e rang à gauche, 40,000.
A small diamond brooch in the shape of Prince of Wales' feathers gave a hint of even bigger things to come.
300,000 to the gentleman, 520,000, 700,000, 800,000. 850,000. Thank you very much indeed, sir. For 850,000 then. For 850,000, all finished this time. As usual, JB. At 400,000 then. Have you finished, madam? Thank you very much then. For 400,000 francs. As usual. 100,000. Have you all finished for 1,500,000? As usual. A new bidder. As usual. To you, sir. Last lot of this evening's sale. Lot 95. 2,500,000 francs for 3,900,000. 4 million! I am going to sell it for 4,300,000 francs. Have you finished, sir? For 4,300,000. It is going to be sold. 4,300,000 then. Selling, sir. As usual.
A knockdown price of nearly £2 million. Time for the auctioneers to blow their own trumpet. Day one had raised 4 times the original sale estimate of £5 million. But why had they so miscalculated?
What was the previous price?
Well, obviously we didn't take into account the historical value. We certainly added something for it, but not nearly enough. And added to that, I think there were even lots of jewelers who wanted to have something from this collection. Not to sell, but probably just to keep as a flagship for their collection.
You know jewellery, you used to make jewellery. Which piece gave you particular satisfaction to sell?
Well, of course, there are several pieces. I think possibly the piece I most admired was the Cartier Panther bracelet. It was so beautifully made. They do, in fact, still make them now, but they're still absolutely wonderful jewels, and I love them.
Well, the McLean diamond was a real cliffhanger. What was going through your mind? Because you were really talking that one up, weren't you?
Well, yes. that took it took a lot of waiting. Very tense it was. It was an amazing price, but it was a lovely diamond, or is a lovely diamond, and I think the Japanese gentleman who bought it is a lucky chap to own such a diamond.
From a historical point of view, the engagement ring is perhaps one of the most priceless things in terms of history. That has gone to a London buyer, a London jeweller. But what does that mean to you? I mean, because it was a record price, wasn't it?
It was indeed. The previous record price was about $48,000 a carat for any emerald sold at auction. And I believe this one has made considerably more than that. It was a wonderful stone, and it was certainly one of the most beautiful emeralds that I've ever been in contact with. It was that lovely old mined Indian material.
How would you describe tonight's event?
I would just describe it as a fabulous sale, the most fabulous sale that I've ever been lucky enough to participate in. And I was just very pleased to be part of it.
Sailing fever. I would love to go sailing once more, in the coolest crew in England of us brothers 3, for the thrilling feeling of the faster healing moonshine due to her overhanging, dipping, lengthening waterline. Till at last we're sailing fast into the open sea, strong south winds abeam sing along in harmony, with bow waves spreading afore her lee, we're speeding west towards Torquay. We're in no hurry to get there, than a carousel at the fair, but nature's speed enthralls all of we 3. This is a treasure trip for me. Cumbered in sun or clouds of rain, how I wish we 3 could sail en famille offshore once more.
Jewels have often survived wars and revolutions rather better than their owners, and some have even caused the downfall of their owners.
Take, for example, the notorious diamond necklace of Queen Marie Antoinette, which provoked such a scandal at the court of Versailles. Possibly the scandal of the diamond necklace was a major factor in the run-up to the French Revolution. The diamonds from this necklace are now in the hands of a Scottish noble lady, and many other royal jewels have changed hands between important families. Here, at the extraordinary palace of Blenheim, another royal necklace has come into the possession of the Dukes and Duchesses of Marlborough. The first Duke was a soldier, and for his triumphs against the French, Queen Anne gave him a palace. It has been in the hands of his family ever since. 10 generations of Spencer Churchills. When the 9th Duke of Marlborough got married to Consuela Vanderbilt, daughter of the fabulously rich American railway baron, the Marlborough jewels were somewhat depleted. But Consuela's mother generously boosted Consuela's dowry with her own wonderful pearls. Among these were the wandering pearls of Catherine the Great. From Imperial St. Petersburg, via Paris and New York, to Blenheim Palace, these pearls have found a new home. Russia, 1774, a golden age presided over by Catherine the Great, whose appetite for jewels was exceeded only by her appetite for men. Among them, Potemkin, the one-eyed and obese general whose loyalty was rewarded with estates, honors, and a twin-row pearl necklace. We will never know precisely how the pearls left Russia, but by the late 1800s, they were adorning the neck of Mrs. William K. Vanderbilt. The Vanderbilts were rich and ambitious. Their teenage daughter, Consuelo, was beautiful. In 1895, she was dragooned into an unhappy marriage to the 9th Duke of Marlborough. After her death, the pearls were returned to Blenheim. Only by now, the twin rows had become one.
I think it's terribly important to wear pearls. And I'm very lucky because I'm told I've got good skin for pearls, whatever that means. I think in every photograph I've ever seen of my mother-in-law, she always wore them. And then, of course, my husband's grandmother, with her lovely long neck, she apparently wore them all the time as well.
Do they form part of a big collection of Marlborough jewels?
Oh, I wish they did. No, unfortunately they don't. I think there's most of the Marlborough gems actually went with the 5th Duke, gambling debts and all those other terrible things they did. I think this is about it, unfortunately.
Smoking without proper pause is the root cause of my bad health. It was at least the half cause of my high blood pressure stroke. That for last 20 years my life did torture and break. Smoking gives me heavy phlegm of glue, like a pint of carpenter's glue being fed, then turned upside down on my head. That clogs me up like a permanent flu. It loses all my appetite and I feel too sick to eat. Smoking I must beat. Its costs are great and people hate it. It makes me cough and gives me chest pain, which sometimes requires 2 Nurofen. It is somehow connected to leg pain. I don't know how it affects the brain. I pray the tumor up relieves the strain. It gives me nervous tension. I feel I'm drifting like a tit. For they can give me a fit. But after one smoke, I crave another one, and so on and so on and on. To get better, I must not smoke in bed for a week, not one. Monday, January 14 to Sunday 21, 2013. One path is enough to dissolve my resolve.
Oh, yes, indeed. I've been lucky enough to sell, I think, one of the most important pink diamonds in the world. And this has a rather strange story. It dates back to about 1980, when one day an Italian client arrived in our offices in Switzerland. And he presented us with this pink diamond. And he'd rung up before and said that he was coming with a pink diamond, but I didn't expect such a marvelous stone. And it was absolutely fabulous. It was about a quarter of the size of a matchbox. And straight away I knew that it was a £1 million plus stone. The only thing that fazed me slightly was the client himself, who was dressed in leather and had dyed blonde hair. And so I wondered if such a man could own such a stone. And of course I asked him about the origins of the stone, where he got it. And he was absolutely honest. He said he'd found it in the street. And the story went like this, that he was walking in the Via Veneto in Rome one day, and he kicked an empty packet of Marlboro cigarettes. And out jumped this pink stone, glinting on the pavement. He was with his girlfriend. He picked it up and looked at it, and he said, "Very pretty stone." He put it in his pocket and forgot about it. The next morning, he went to the corner jewelers of his suburbs in Rome, and he asked the jeweler what it was. The jeweler said it was a pink topaz, and it was worth some money, just a few £100s. And in the end, the corner jeweler mounted it as a very ugly ring for the girlfriend. He gave it to the girlfriend, who wore it for a few months. But after some time, this fellow found himself short of money. He was a cabaret dancer, in fact, and of course he didn't work all the time. And he borrowed the ring back to take it to the pawn shop, who, again, stated that it was a pink topaz and lent him £500 on it. Left it there for a few months, more or less forgetting about it. And during this time, a jeweler was looking for bargains under all the piles of watches in the pawn shop and saw this pink stone glinting out. Picked it up, looked at it through his loupe, and recognized it as a diamond. And being pink, and a very deep pink, of course, he recognized it as a fabulously expensive stone. Called the pawn shop manager, who looked up the consignor in his files and remembered this little chap with dyed hair, and immediately understood that he couldn't really own such a stone. Called the police. There was nothing reported to the police. Called the insurance company. No reports with them. And therefore he called the consignor. And he asked the consignor what happened. The consignor, again, told him the true story, that he'd found it in the street. And the manager explained to him that if he went to the town hall and had it written in the official gazette that he'd found it in the street, and no one claimed it after 6 months, it was his.
It became his property.
It became his property, and he had title to it. And he gave the stone back to the consignor. Anyway, then the consignor brought it to us and told us this story, asked us to sell it. And I put it in a catalogue. And it immediately excited all the buyers, all the professionals who came to look at it, because it certainly was the most exciting pink stone that had been on the market for a long, long time. And I asked the chap at the same time to give me a copy of the official gazette where it posted the loss, or rather the find. He said he would produce it. The auction drew near, and no copy of the official gazette. And everybody was getting more and more excited. The estimated value was going up and up. And only a few days before the auction, I understood that there was something wrong, and I tried to find this dancer. And this proved very difficult, actually. And eventually we found him in a small place in Genoa, where he was doing a cabaret. We got him to come straight up to Geneva, where he finally admitted that everything in the story was true, except that he'd never actually posted it in the official gazette. And so obviously he didn't have official title to it. And we had a problem because we'd excited all our buyers. We didn't want to withdraw it. And so then we started searching for the real owner. We called up the Amsterdam cutters to see what rough it could have been cut out. We called up all the jewelers' shops. Nothing. Nobody knew anything about it. Until we got hold of an oldish antique dealer. And he said, yes, well, maybe he knew of an industrialist who, many years previously, had given such a stone as an engagement present to his fiancée. We rang up the industrialist, who denied anything to do with the pink diamond. We then got back to the antique dealer, and he said, yes, well, he'd actually found letters pertaining to the sale of this stone to that same industrialist. We rang up the industrialist again, and he finally admitted it. The industrialist then wanted to withdraw the stone from the sale, but we had to tell the industrialist that if he did so, it was going to arouse a lot of attention, a lot of publicity, and a lot of people hunting around to see who it belonged to, so it would be wiser to keep it in the sale. The industrialist kept it in the sale. We sold it for a record ever price for a pink diamond, and in fact for any diamond. Of course, the industrialist took the major part of the price, but he left a good part for the person who found it in the street, the dancer. And the nicest part of the story was that although the dancer had split from his girlfriend, he insisted on giving half his share to his old girlfriend.
Baby names: Archibaldo, Arthur, August, Anthony, Andrew, Edward, Harry, Herbert, Horatio, Raphael, Richard, Samuel, Simon.
Sleep. Sleep. Devi cantargli la Nina Nanna, Nicola.
Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. Make him the cutest that I've ever seen. Give him two lips like roses and clover. Then tell him that his lonesome nights are over. Sandman, I'm so alone. Don't have nobody to call my own. Please turn on your magic beam. Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. Make him the cutest that I've ever seen. Give him the